Hi, and welcome back to my channel and episode 3 of Recent Reads. I am filming this on a Monday evening. Haven't really read anything yet this week, but I think I will be able to get some stuff read. Speaking of that, what I plan to read, I plan to obviously choose from my TBR. There are a few things ongoing that I will definitely get to. One of those is Sir Boateng's Guide to Hunting Vampires. I pointed over there because that's where it's sitting right now. And then a third book in the Stormrunner series. I forget the name of that third book because I need to read that before getting to Lords of Night, which is one of my e-arcs that I have a physical copy of that I also need to read. So obviously Lords of Night, I have the audio for, and I'll be listening to that. That'll be really quick. Audio-wise, I started My Imaginary Mary last night, and I'm enjoying it. I love the sort of cheeky aspect to history that these authors are bringing to it because it's not real history. And if you go into it knowing that, you can have a little fun with it. And I really enjoy the interactions so far with Mary Shelley, but it's her maiden name, which I forget at the moment, and Ada Lovelace, or Ada Byron at this point. I just really like the interaction and what they're doing and the sort of fantastical take that the authors are giving to it. So those are the ones that I'm definitely going to get to. As far as what I will get to beyond that, pretty sure that I'm going to get to His Truth is Marching On probably during the marathon on Sunday. I think I want to save that one for that run. And I'm going to listen to audiobooks on the way because, you know, I have a flight out to Houston and etc. I'm not going to bring any of the books with me because, you know, travel, but they're all arcs that I have. So I'm going to be bringing my Kindle and charger. So the other stuff that I'm going to get to is anything on this shelf, and I'm going to take you over there. Anything here I plan to get to, except for My Imaginary Mary, which is right over there because I'm reading that right now. But some of these I will get to. And there you have what's coming up this week in my recent reads. I don't know why I feel like I need to wrap things up at the end of a clip, but I don't. Okay, so I just filmed an Illumicrate unboxing, and so I figured I would go ahead and update now. It's actually Wednesday. I keep getting my days mixed up, and I don't know why. I keep thinking it's one day more than it is. I wanted to say it was Thursday. It's not. It's Wednesday. But I didn't update yesterday, and I wasn't necessarily going to update today, and that's just because I haven't really been moving through the books quickly. I decided to go ahead and just read. Oh, okay. So I did remember something. Yesterday, I did manage, was it yesterday or Monday? I think what it was is I started this vlog Monday morning, and I didn't update Monday evening. So, gotta backtrack a bit because a lot of time has passed. I did finish Sir Boateng's Guide to Vampire Hunting. Top notch. The way that Roseanne Brown built the characters, built the friend groups, both played into their strengths, but also acknowledged their weaknesses. She had conversations brought up amongst the kids that were very realistic because it centers Ghanaian mythology, but this friend group, they're not all Ghanaian. In fact, only 2 of them are Ghanaian. And they're related, but I forget how they're related. One of them is African American. Besides the Ghanaian, so the main character is, Serwa is Ghanaian, and her cousin is of Ghanaian descent. I'm not sure about the descent of the other African American. And there's also, I believe, a Korean girl and a Latine boy. And they have this conversation at one point where they're talking about the different discrimination that happens because the Latine boy, he has a stutter, a very pronounced stutter, and they're talking about a particular person who could be a villain, and he's like, I don't know, she was always nice to me. And another character says something about, oh yeah, people do that as a way of saying, look, I'm not racist because I'm nice to the Hispanic kid who stutters, or something like that. And what I also love is that right away he's like, oh wait, that was probably an insult to you as well. I didn't mean it that way. I just wanted to point out this, but I realized what I said. And so it was well nuanced, and I really appreciated that and how it built, and then that cliffhanger ending. I could have seen it coming, should have seen it coming, but when it unfolded, well done. So that was Monday evening. I didn't cross stitch at all Monday evening, and then yesterday I didn't feel like it because I wanted to read more in the Shadow Crosser, I believe is what the conclusion in that trilogy is, because I started that Monday night, and then I just could not stay awake enough to make the connections that I needed to, and it took me way too long to read what I did, and it was just frustrating because I skipped cross-stitching to do that and etc. So I haven't made any progress in my Imaginary Mary. So the plan is to get to both of those today. Okay, so we have made it to Texas. I almost said Ottawa. I'm in the hotel room. Mom and now let's walk back to the expo because one of the pair of pants that we bought was a little too small for me. So I told Mom she didn't have to go back, but she insisted. So reading update. Last night I stayed up and I finished Shadow Crosser, and I really enjoyed it. I have read so much and I read it so quickly that unfortunately a lot of the details are escaping me at the moment, but I did a week or so ago go back and look at my review from the Shadowrunner, the first in the series, and I put in that review that I wanted to read the rest of the series. Somehow forgot that. And now I read the rest of the series, and it did pick up tremendously, and I got engaged with the characters and the mythology, and I'm going to take my glasses off because I can see the viewfinder reflection in them. So I finished that. I haven't run it through Compile or anything like that, so I don't know what star rating it's going to get. Probably a 4 because it was decent but not my favorite. A lot of similar tropes that you would expect. And I'm trying to give more in-depth reviews of the books as I read them, trying to get a little bit better with my analysis. I'll have to get better on a different book because I'm already forgetting some of the details. So on the flight here, I restarted. I didn't go back because I was only 6% in, but I started listening again to the Shadow Lords. I think that's the title of it. It's the first in the Shadow Bruja, I guess, trilogy, which picks up with Ren, who is a secondary but very important secondary character in the Shadowrunner series. And when I picked up with that, I got so many more of the references, so I'm glad I went back and read those other 2 books in the previous series. And I really enjoy how Cervantes is expanding the world in this one and bringing in different Mesoamerican mythologies, because Shadowrunner primarily centers Mayan mythology, and there's some mention of Mexica. I think that's how it's pronounced, but the narrator pronounced it differently. Mythology, but basically like more like Aztec. And well, it mentioned Mexica and Aztec. I don't know if they're exactly the same or similar, but it's bringing in more Mesoamerican mythologies, and I really enjoy that. And Ren is such a great character, and I really enjoy Cervantes' voice in this with Ren as the main character. I mean, don't get me wrong, Zane was a great character, but I really enjoy her voice in using Ren as a main character, so maybe it's because it's a female main character. So that's what I listened to on audiobook. I probably will finish that today. And physically, I tried to do quotation marks, but I'm holding my glasses, so I couldn't do that. On ebook, I'm not listening, I'm reading Spells for Forgetting. And as I started reading this, I realized it's probably very light fantasy, and as I've gotten further in, I'm about halfway through, it's extremely light on the fantasy. It's more, I guess you could say, murder mystery, sort of, but it's very atmospheric, it's very small town vibes with a hint of witchiness. There was a murder that happened, I think 14 years ago. One thing I will say is that the timelines I'm confused by. So there was a murder where one girl, I think they were all about 18, but one girl is found dead, and basically the boyfriend of the main character, well, they're both main characters, but anyway, the boyfriend of the main character is the top suspect, but he's never accused. But now he has to come back to this island, very remote island, and because his mother died and she wanted to be buried on the island, so he has an urn with her ashes. And it's bringing up a whole lot of stuff because he and his mother left the small town because of all the suspicion on him, and it was basically almost insufferable. And there's a whole lot going on, but because the murder was never solved, there's a little bit of trying to figure that out and reveals here and there. So it's not a fantasy book. I would definitely not categorize this as a fantasy book, but I'm really enjoying it, and the way that different things are being discussed. It's definitely a more atmospheric book than I would generally pick up, but it's giving me the impression that I've had for a while that I might want to pick up some cozy mysteries or this sort of book, because I used to read those when I was a lot younger. Granted, they were Mary Higgins Clark, but I was younger and my taste had not improved. No, just kidding. So I'm going to keep reading and maybe check in tomorrow. Who knows? Okay, so I'm back home. It is Monday evening, and let's just say things did not end up going exactly how I had planned. Thus, you got only one update from Texas. On, what day was it? Saturday. I felt great in the morning. We went down, we had breakfast. I thought about getting my run in before we went back to the expo again. Yes, again. But I didn't. And so we ended up around noonish walking back to the expo. And I had been sitting watching BookTube, and my back felt a little bit sore, and I was like, I should probably stretch it out. Did I? No. So then we go, and we went back because we had to change out some shorts. And when I leaned down to try on the shorts, somehow that triggered something. I tweaked something in my back, and my back started to spasm. The walk back was torture. And I thought, really? The day before the marathon? What is going on? The spasming eventually stopped. Was doing everything should have done, icing, resting, finding a good position, etc. It was still feeling marginally Then my stepdad, well, my mom offered that my stepdad massage it because he's really good at doing that for her, like on her calves and stuff. And he did, and it felt so much better. That like triggered this healing sort of thing. And so I did end up running the marathon, which I'm so excited about. So how does all of this relate to reading? Because this is not a lifestyle vlog, this is a recent reads. What that meant was I hadn't read anything on Saturday, and I was not really in the position, like physically, where I was laying, or mentally to read anything. So I did not read anything on Saturday because I hadn't read anything in the morning. So that put me behind a little bit. But on Sunday, after the marathon, which I finished and was so happy about, and even felt so good, like good enough that around mile 19, I ended up going ahead of Mom. Now, was it the time I wanted? No, it was about an hour slower than I wanted, but I'm still so happy that I was able to get it and get it done and get it in. Now I have some unfinished business with the Houston Marathon. So just need to help these muscles recover fully and then get back to training. So reading wise though, I did read on Sunday and I read audiobook. Originally, I had planned to read this book during the marathon. I thought it'll be engaging. It's a topic I really like, and I'll start fresh, start this on the marathon. So I started it at first, and I just could not get into it. I was listening, following along, engaging a little bit with it, but then things would happen. My attention in the first part of the marathon was more on, is my back gonna be okay? What's going on? How does this feel? And I wasn't really paying attention to the book. So I switched and went back to My Imaginary Mary. So I'll give my review of this next. I loved it. I loved it. And you would think that someone as into history as I am would have a little bit of a problem with the fact that so much of this is, well, basically all of this is completely made up, but with historical characters. I didn't mind, because the authors were like, yeah, this didn't actually happen in real life, but what if it did? And I love that idea and the way that they approached everything, and, you know, breaking the fourth wall, telling the narrations, all of the different characters. I love how Pan developed as a character. I loved the involvement of Mary's sisters. I remember a review at one point that was like, yeah, Mary's not really a character in here. They just put her name on it so they could have My Imaginary Mary. But I'm like, yeah, she is. She's one of the two main characters. I really enjoyed the take that they had on this story and their interpretations of different things. I loved it. We'll get back to, I don't remember if I ended up giving a full review on this, so I'll just hold it up because I think I did, because I think I finished it on Friday. I really enjoyed this. It is sort of genre defying for me. It's not fantasy. It's maybe a little bit of magical realism. There's a little bit of witchy stuff that's in here. It's a little bit of mystery, but because there was a mystery in the past, and that's coming back to the present, but it's not like they're trying to find out who did it, or if they're more trying to find out if these two people are involved. How is this connected? Why is everything coming back right now? What is the hold that this island has on everybody? And it's just this complicated family village story, and I loved it. Adrienne Young is definitely an auto-buy author for me now. The other book that I read physically, aka ebook on Kindle, was A Man of Iron. This is obviously a library copy, so hence shiny. It is a biography of Grover Cleveland. I have to admit that the history nerd that I am, when I started reading, I was thinking that Grover Cleveland was Chester Arthur. And most people who don't know the presidents very well would be like, who is who? Chester Arthur was a president who nobody expected to become president, but he succeeded James Garfield when he was assassinated. And no one expected James Garfield to be president either. He was like everybody's third choice. But Chester Arthur made a lot of decisions that made people mad, and so he never won election on his own. This is not him. This is the guy, the only guy in U.S. history, hopefully it stays that way, who has ever served 2 non-consecutive terms. And I know like nothing about him, and I found this fascinating. I thought that Troy Senik did a really good job telling the story without bogging down in details, but rooting it in historical fact, and it was a really solid narrative. I definitely enjoyed this one. So far, all of the books that I read, I enjoyed. If I had to rate one lowest out of all of them, it would honestly be this one. And it's not because this is a bad book. Part of me thinks that if I'd read it in a different mindset, at least that first part, in a different mindset where I could concentrate on it more, I would have a different opinion of it. This is not a biography of John Lewis, which I struggled a little bit with because it not loses focus, because I think it stays true to the idea of what it was trying to say. It's more trying to put together different events in his life with pivotal civil rights events. So Meacham will talk about different civil rights events and then bring Lewis into it. or vice versa, talk about Lewis and then tie it to the event. And I think I just was disconnected at the beginning, so it took a little bit longer to get into it. And this might be a book that I return to as a reread. So there you have it. I got a lot of books read. I've got a lot of stuff that I need to update on all Goodreads and Storygraph and etc. When am I going to get to that? I don't know, because a brand new semester starts tomorrow. 80-some new kids to meet and learn and get the semester started off hopefully great. So there you have it. I'm only going to hold up for the thumbnail. I'm only going to hold up these, even though I know I read more this week, because there's these things. There was the during school and there was the trip. It feels like two completely different times. So there you have a very eventful, that didn't go as planned, recent reads number 3. Thanks so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next one.